Get started using the Mitigate app to mitigate risk in your project in 5 easy steps. Step number 1, create a Mitigate project file. Step number 2, add risks to the project risk list. 3, set the baseline risk score. 4, monitor and report risk status. 5, adjust risks and re-baseline as required. From Mitigate's main screen, select the option to create a new project. Mitigate will present you with a page where you will name and briefly describe the project you are working on. Fill in the details, then click or tap the button to save the project file. Note that if you choose to save your project file to OneDrive, you will be able to work with a project from any of your devices, so long as they have Mitigate installed. When saving is complete, Mitigate will present you with the project summary page. The project summary page is a dashboard presenting an at-a-glance view of the status of risks that have been identified for the project. More on this later. Click or tap the link to begin adding risks. Mitigate will present you with the risk list page. The risk list is empty to start. Tap or click the menu option to begin adding a risk. The risk statement is a brief description of something that could happen, which might impact the successful delivery of the project. Using the probability slider, capture an assessment of how likely it is that the stated risk will actually become reality. Similarly, use the impact slider to capture your assessment of how big an effect the risk would have if it does in fact become reality. Note that once you have a set value for probability and impact, Mitigate calculates a risk score for that risk. In the mitigation plan section, describe ongoing steps that will be taken to keep the risk from becoming reality. In the contingency plan section, describe what action will be taken if, despite all efforts to mitigate, the risk item does in fact become reality. You can optionally add comments in the notes section to further clarify or highlight anything related to this risk item for future reference. When you feel you have fully captured all the details of the risk, set the status of the risk to Monitoring and Mitigating. Mitigate will lock the sliders and all text boxes, with the exception of the notes box, to avoid changes from being inadvertently made. Note that you can always change the status back to draft if you need to make changes later. Click or tap the button to add the risk to the risk list. Mitigate will generate an ID for the risk and save the risk to the project file. You will be returned to the risk list page where you can again select the Add Risk menu item to complete the details for the next and subsequent risks. With risks added to the project, you can customize how you view the full risk list. You can work with the list in its default grid view or switch to list view. Using the menu options, you can sort, group, and filter the risk list to customize the view to best suit your needs. When you have identified all of the risks that you want to track as part of your project, it is time to set a baseline. Navigate to the project summary page and scroll to the project risk assessment section. The baseline will be 0 to start. Tap or click the button to establish the baseline. Mitigate will capture the date and time that the baseline was set and save to the project file. The project summary page provides features to easily review and communicate risk status, including the risk heat map, risk status bar chart, and the current versus baseline risk score indicator. The risk heat map plots individual risk scores according to their impact and probability values, providing a visual representation of the risk profile of the project. Tap or click on any of the plot points to drill down into risk details. The risk status bar chart shows a count of risks broken out by status. Tapping or clicking on the header of the bar chart brings you to the risk list page. The baseline versus current score indicator provides a snapshot of where the overall project risk sits relative to the previously established baseline. The risk heat map plots individual risk scores according to their impact and probability values, providing a visual representation of the risk profile of the project. Tap or click on any of the plot points to drill down into risk details. The risk status bar chart shows a count of risks broken out by status. Tapping or clicking on the header of the bar chart brings you to the risk list page. The baseline versus current score indicator provides a snapshot of where the overall project risk sits relative to the previously established baseline. In addition to viewing the details on the project summary screen, Mitigate provides you with the ability to easily send a summary report to others. Click or tap the Share Report menu option. Choose the email account to use and recipient and send. The report contains a list of all risks as well as snapshots of the risk status bar chart, baseline versus current risk score indicator, and the risk heat map. The risk management process is ongoing throughout the lifetime of a project. Change will happen. Treat the Mitigate risk list as a living document. Take time to reassess project risks and establish a new baseline as required. Start managing project risk with Mitigate today. Here are some suggested next steps. Check out the sample project file included in the Mitigate app. Review the Guide to Simple Risk Management documentation, also included in the app. Install Mitigate on all your devices to review and manage your project risks on the go.